Do you really know who Disney's true girl next door was? The face that defined innocence for an entire generation before Hollywood ever learned how dangerous early fame could be. Because Hayley Mills was not just a child star or a Disney actress, but a living symbol of optimism, kindness, and belief in goodness at a time when the world desperately wanted to see itself reflected that way. And yet, behind that luminous smile lived a life marked by fear, loss, control, quiet suffering, and extraordinary resilience, beginning with her birth on April 18, 1946 in London, into what many considered the aristocracy of British theatre, the daughter of Sir John Mills, one of Britain's most respected actors, and Mary Hayley Bell, a playwright and novelist, raised alongside her sister Juliet Mills, in a household where art was discipline rather than indulgence, where scripts and rehearsals replaced fairy tales, and where childhood was shaped by two opposing worlds, the warmth and freedom of a family farm where Hayley absorbed storytelling instinctively, and the cold rigidity of boarding school, where her sensitivity felt stifled, controlled, and unseen. And it was there, long before Disney and fame, that her innocence cracked when a priest attempted to exploit her in exchange for a role in a school play, a moment she would later describe in her memoir Forever Young as the first time she understood that authority could disguise danger, pushing her inward toward books, imagination, and solitude, where she found refuge in romantic novels like Anya Seton's Catherine, and quietly experienced the normal stirrings of adolescence the public never imagined, including briefly dating George Harrison of the Beatles, a small detail that alone shatters the myth of the untouched Disney child. Because Hayley was always more complex than the image built around her, and her entry into cinema was almost accidental when, at just 12, she appeared in Tiger Bay in 1959, thinking of it as nothing more than playing with her father, unaware that her raw, instinctive performance would reach Walt Disney himself, who, while searching for a young actress for Pollyanna, stopped the screening halfway through and uttered the sentence that changed her life forever: "Find me that girl." And when Hayley met Walt Disney in a London hotel suite, she didn't understand his power or legacy, seeing only a kind man with a thin mustache, arriving with her family and a dog gifted by Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier that promptly embarrassed everyone by peeing on the carpet, while Disney simply smiled, already certain he had found his star, later writing a handwritten letter to her mother thanking her for sharing such a rare talent with the world, offering Hayley an exclusive 7-picture contract that transformed a shy boarding school girl into Disney's adopted daughter. And when Pollyanna premiered in 1960, it became a phenomenon beyond all expectations, turning 14-year-old Hayley into America's sweetheart, with Walt Disney himself visiting the set more than any other project, quietly protective, never demanding, creating an atmosphere where she felt safe, even when she was too shy to record the film's signature song, encouragement that paid off when she won the Academy Juvenile Award and a Golden Globe, becoming one of the youngest performers ever honored, while fan mail flooded Disney at more than 7,000 letters a week, some containing diamond rings and bizarre gifts like offers of pet otters. Yet each time Hayley returned to England, she was still just another student at boarding school, eating strict meals and receiving no special treatment, living between two incompatible realities that made her fame feel surreal and haunting, a contradiction that deepened when Disney pushed her further with The Parent Trap in 1961, casting her as both twins in a technically daring role, requiring mathematical precision and emotional range, which she performed so naturally audiences forgot there was only one actress, turning the film into one of Disney's highest-grossing movies of the decade, and even sending her song Let's Get Together into the Billboard Top 10, cementing her status as a global icon of children's cinema, followed by a string of hits like In Search of the Castaways, Summer Magic, and That Darn Cat that polished her image into Disney's golden girl, even as off-screen she was growing up, changing, and feeling increasingly trapped by an audience that only wanted the child she no longer was, a silent struggle that culminated in her decision to break free with The Family Way in 1966, a bold adult role that shocked the public but earned critical respect, proving Hayley Mills was not just a former child star, but a serious actress willing to risk everything to grow. And it was during this vulnerable transition that her personal life ignited one of the greatest scandals of her career, when she fell in love with Roy Bolting, a brilliant but controversial filmmaker 33 years her senior, whose reputation and age gap shocked Britain and made headlines portraying the relationship as an imbalance of power, tearing apart the image audiences had clung to since Pollyanna, while Hayley herself simply felt understood for the first time, marrying Roy Bolting after years together despite public outrage, retreating into a quiet artistic life between a Chelsea apartment filled with writers and a Buckinghamshire windmill where they read, talked, and walked through misty hills, until time revealed the truth that love could not erase the gap between a man slowing down and a woman still searching for herself, leading to a quiet divorce in 1977 that left behind their son Crispian Mills, who would later define the 1990s Britpop era with Kula Shaker, a success Hayley always credited solely to his own talent. And after Roy came a gentler chapter with actor-director Lee Lawson, a relationship free of scandal that brought her second son, Jason, in 1976, and offered a brief sense of balance before two artistic lives moving in opposite directions separated peacefully, leaving Hayley wiser, more grounded, and eventually ready for the steady, private companionship she found with Faris Abbas Khan in the late 1990s, a relationship built on respect and calm that has endured without marriage or media attention, providing the stability she had never known, just in time for the greatest physical battle of her life, when in 2008 she was diagnosed with breast cancer in both breasts, enduring surgery and brutal chemotherapy that drained her strength, stripped her hair, and brought her closer to death than she had ever been, until she made the controversial decision to stop treatment and reclaim control through alternative therapies, a gamble that worked, leading her to being declared cancer-free by 2012, a victory that forced her to reassess her entire life and confront regrets not about fame or scandal, but about time lost with her children, a pause that echoed earlier losses, including the devastating financial tragedy that had silently destroyed her youth, when she discovered at 21 that nearly all the money she had earned as a child had vanished, swallowed by a 91% UK tax rate and compounded by misguided investments made without her knowledge, followed by years of legal battles that ultimately ended with her losing roughly £2 million, the equivalent of nearly $17 million today, a loss she described simply as the government stealing her trust like pirates, not because of greed, but because of the freedom it represented, a pain compounded by the mysterious disappearance of her Juvenile Oscar from her family home in the 1980s, a unique award whose mold had been destroyed, and symbolized not fame but childhood, a loss that lingered until the Academy finally presented her with a replacement in 2022, quietly restoring a piece of her past. And running parallel to all of this was a silent illness no one saw, bulimia, which began innocently after reckless advice from a jockey and evolved into a hidden addiction at a time when the disorder wasn't even recognized, shrinking her body, damaging her health, and forcing her to smile through suffering while maintaining Disney's perfect image, until motherhood and time allowed her to heal and later speak openly so others would not suffer alone, making her legacy far greater than box office numbers or golden statues, because Hayley Mills became a mirror reflecting an era when Hollywood failed to protect its children, a voice that helped spark conversations about financial safeguards and mental health, remembered by colleagues for humility and professionalism, by audiences as a piece of their childhood, and by younger artists as proof that early fame does not have to destroy you if you learn to protect your heart. And now, nearing 80, Hayley continues to work quietly in film, television, and theater, spending her days with her children, grandchildren, and the partner who stood beside her through cancer, no longer chasing the spotlight, but carrying the lessons with grace, showing that behind Pollyanna's smile lived a woman who lost her fortune, her innocence, her health, and even her Oscar, yet never lost her kindness, her endurance, or her belief in light, leaving behind not just films, but a living reminder that true strength often grows in silence, and that sometimes the brightest legacy is not fame itself, but the resilience to survive it.